Hello, my name is Alex Popora, and I'm a curriculum specialist with the National Association of Conservation Districts. Today, I'm going to show you how you can use some activities from the Pollinator Field Day Curriculum Guide that's available to download for free at National Association of Conservation Districts. To download the guide, you'll want to visit the NACD Conservation Education Hub. You can download a PDF of the guide in color, like I have here, or in black and white. There's a number of student pages, so we've provided a copy for you in black and white, so those resources are easier to print out. Inside the guide, you'll find comprehensive information on how your facility can host a pollinator field day. We know that things have kind of changed right now, so we're going to show you how you can do one of the activities from the guide in a variety of settings. The way that the guide is set up, we have pre-activities, post-activities, and the field day stations, but they can be used independently or together, like in an a la carte type fashion. So today, we're going to go over one of my favorite activities, Pollinator Picnic. I'm going to give you an overview of the activity, some of the ways that you can adapt this activity for different settings, and some of the related lesson plans that you can find in the guide. Before we get started, I wanted to point out that within the guide, you'll find pre and post evaluation questions. So whether you're doing this activity at home at your site or maybe even virtually, you can ask your learners these questions to see what they already know and understand about pollinators, and you can ask them again at the end to see if their information has changed. We've also included this question, is there anything you'd like to learn about pollinators to extend students' learning and help them investigate their own questions? So let's start out with the activity. The activity I'm going to talk about today is Pollinator Picnic. It's a field day station, so it's meant to be done in about 10 to 15 minutes, but you can extend the activity if you would like. Within this activity, students and learners will engage in understanding that most of our food gets to us by way of pollinators. 1 out of every 3 bites of food we eat is on our plate because pollinators exist. In this activity, students will be posed with a question. Can they put together a picnic of foods that don't come from pollinators? And to have them do this within the activity are a handful of cards with food items, and on the back some information about that food item and whether or not it needs a pollinator. So for example, oranges, they are an animal pollinated plant, or potato chips. Potato chips, the oil that potatoes are fried in comes from an animal pollinated plant. So throughout this activity, students will discover which of the foods that they eat requires pollination and which foods don't. It can be a little bit of a challenge, but there's a couple ways that you can set it up. Students can have access to just the front of the card with the food item or the front and the back, so they have that information about whether or not the food was pollinated at some point. You can also do this with actual food items. So for example, if you are doing this activity as a standalone, or let's say that you are trying to provide a resource for students or learners to do in their own homes, you can have them investigate food items that are already in their kitchen to understand which ones come from pollinators and which ones don't. It also gives students an opportunity to research food items on their own if they're doing this activity in a setting where they are learning and understanding on their own, rather than doing this as a facilitated field day session. So there's a number of different ways that you can do it. You can use the cards that are provided, you can use your own food items, or you can have students or learners engage in this activity on their own using foods they find in their own home. So those are all of the ways that you can adapt this activity. There are also a number of connections that you can make to additional activities that are found within the Pollinator Field Guide. A great activity to connect this to is the Our Connections to Pollinators activity, which is a 6th through 8th grade lesson, but can be adapted for K through 5 if necessary. The portion of this lesson that is most connected to the Pollinator Picnic activity is the engage and explore portion, where students will understand, again, which foods come to us from pollinators. So in this portion of the activity, the facilitator will have a number of food items. So for example, apples, chocolate, strawberries, tomatoes. You can also use illustrations if you don't have those food items handy. And you'll ask students what all those food items have in common. And the one thing that they share in common is that they're all tied together from pollinators. You can also extend into talking about food webs and how we are all connected to pollinators, but so are other animals within the ecosystem. Lots of different ways that you can use this content to connect it to activities within the Pollinator Field Day Guide and to resources that you may have at hand. If you have any additional questions about the guide, please contact stewardship@nacdnet.org. We hope that you have a lot of fun learning about pollinators. Thanks.